My cousin's here from Florida.
Well, that's a good thing. Family can be the perfect salve in difficult times.
You don't understand. Cousin Daryl is difficult times. He wants Audrey's Boyd. I need him gone.
Well, then tell him to go.
No, you don't know Daryl.
No, but I know you. Now, Dewey Crowe, you stand before me today, a newly minted small businessman on his way to being bona fide. After everything you've been through, I am proud of you, son. The only thing I know about your cousin Daryl is he doesn't know who he's related to. Now, sometimes being a man means you gotta know when to put your foot down. Well, put your foot down, Dewey Crowe.
I love the pep talk from Boyd. It's so good. And again, Walton Goggins kind of single-handedly rescuing this episode by being so good at his craft, right? Just deflecting from Dewey accusing him of ripping him off when he sold him Audrey's to, put your foot down, Dewey Crowe. Go be a man.
Don't be a pussy.
That's right. Are you a man or are you a bitch?
And the way Dewey approaches Dell is like the sort of half-hearted, I really don't want to do this. Haven't thought it through, or I don't believe that I can pull it off.
Well, his negotiation against himself, like, I want $100,000. I'm not leaving here until I get it. And Boyd takes his gun out of his desk drawer because he's thinking about other things, right? He's on his way to other stuff. Takes his gun out, and Dewey's like, 50's fine. And he's like, we could call it a loan. I'll give you a cut of the take from Audrey's. He's just like grinding himself down from a negotiation standpoint. It's great.
Good.
Great negotiation tips from Dewey Crowe.
Yeah.
But so Boyd encourages him to go confront Daryl, stand up to Daryl, and manages to deflect from ripping Dewey off. So for the short term, at least, because it gets a little ugly for him coming up here. But so we have to wrap up where Boyd was on his way. Boyd was on his way to Mara's house. And the plan there is that Boyd wants to make a deal with Mooney. So Mara calls Mooney in, says that Boyd has been there, asks for him specifically. Mooney, pussy's a powerful thing, thinks that she wants to bang him, and drives over to her house and finds the door ajar and finds her just fresh out of the shower and drops his guard. And as soon as he drops his guard, Boyd has the drop on him at gunpoint. He offers Mooney $300,000 in exchange for Mooney pretending to kill Boyd. So Boyd has now offered Paxton, Mara, and Mooney his $300,000, in addition to having already given that money to the Canadians for the heroin shipment. So he's got a lot of people he's made a lot of promises to, and no cash and no drugs to fulfill those promises with. So he's in a pretty bad spot.
It's all the same money, that same $300,000 he's offered to everybody.
And the 250 of it was from Dewey Crowe.
Yeah, for the whorehouse.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Just wild. And so the plan is that Mooney is going to pretend to kill Boyd, tell Paxton that he did kill Boyd. Great success. Like, I don't know what the next step of the plan is after you tell Paxton, hey, Boyd's dead, and you somehow prove it to him, right? Because we get the scene. Actually, I'll just cover that scene now, because you get the scene with Boyd and Mara where they're discussing the jackpot he's in, and she acknowledges, hey, you just agreed to pay Mooney the same money you agreed to pay me with. And he's like, yeah, I know. I'm going to figure it out. Don't worry about it. But she agrees that she's going to help him fake his death because she's got access to a recent corpse, and she can kind of like make up this body to look like Boyd. But she has to see his tattoos, so Boyd takes off his shirt for her, and she caresses him and then puts his hand between her legs. and basically asks him if it's cold there, and apparently it's not. So it was quite the interesting little scene with Boyd and his Nazi tattoos and a fully clothed woman.
Even Boyd was wearing the sweatpants like in high school. This is, the erection would have been through
tent,
the roof.
Yeah. That would have been a great gag for like a parody show. Like, you show the waist up and then you zoom out and he's got gray sweatpants and tented out. Oh goodness. So that's what's happening there. So the plan is Mooney's going to pretend to kill him. They've got a corpse that they're going to dress up and make it look like Boyd, and they're going to show Paxton the photos to make it look like Boyd's dead. Again, I don't know what the next step is in that plan. Like, okay, so Paxton thinks Boyd's dead. What now? Like, how do you get Paxton to change his testimony on the record for Ava? I mean, I guess if he thinks Boyd's dead, maybe he doesn't have a hard-on to lock up Ava anymore. Maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't know.
But that's not even a point of, like, you're not, it's not that there's a negotiation, but what leverage is there?
I mean, you can't just hope that that's what's going to happen, right? You have to have a better plan than that. Even at the level of desperation that Boyd is at now, you wouldn't expect that he would be that reckless.
Yeah.
To leave that to chance. So Boyd's got a bit of a jackpot. He's got no heroin. He's got no money. He's got a lot of creditors, and he's soon going to have a crow problem to deal with. So we'll see that in the next episode. But so Monroe is on his way to kill Duffy. So Raylan decides he owes Wynn a favor and needs to go warn him that Monroe's on the way to kill him. And we get a little bit of a conversation between Wynn and Raylan.
I'm looking to have a private word.
I hope you'll understand if that doesn't strike me as the fondest notion given our recent history, Marshal.
I hope you're the kind of man that chooses not to live in the past.
Well, normally I am. It's just that, try to kill me once, shame on
Well,
you.
if I tried to kill you, you'd be dead. Besides, I'm here to protect you.
Wow. That's a refreshing change of pace. Mikey, give us a sec. Am I allowed to ask who you're protecting me from?
Charles Monroe.
Don't believe I know that name.
I'm betting you do, since he washed close to $3 million for you last couple of years.
Isn't there an allegedly that goes along with that?
At the moment, the only connection between you and Monroe that interests me is the one that's got him looking to put a bullet in your head.
And which one is that?
You installed a hidden safe in his office.
Okay, let's say for the sake of argument that I do know a Mr. Monroe and that I did install a safe in his office. How does that lead to him wanting me dead?
Come on, Wynn. Why would anyone want to kill the guy that put in their security?
Charlie got robbed?
He believes he did.
And why?
Well, I don't want to bore you with the details. Basically, I led him to believe it.
So, you're protecting me from a situation you created?
I could see how you'd see it that way if you want to focus on the negative.
If you want to focus on the negative, I can see how you'd see it that way. I led him to believe that. I do love the... Why does he think that? Well, because I led him to think that.
No.
So it's a fun little conversation with two people who really don't like each other and would very much like each other to be dead. So it's entertaining.
It is.
And Mikey, who is a stone killer, according to Wynn, who sits there and eats his dinner while Monroe is rolling around on the ground in pain, being taken into Marshall's custody after Mikey shoots him. So Mikey shoots Monroe. Monroe gets taken into custody. It does appear that those charges are going to stick because you're definitely not allowed to have a gun if you're out on bail like that. So, and you're certainly not allowed to have a gun with murderous intent if you're out on bail like that. So he's probably going to go away for a long time.
Yeah, he what is it? Snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah, seriously, right? Exactly. I mean, he had the chance. He was going to get out of it. He was going to get away with it, and he couldn't get out of his own way. He let the marshals manipulate him when his stuff wasn't even actually stolen.
Yeah.
So that feels. I mean, I know it's not entrapment, and we can do like an entire law minute on entrapment at some point. Because you have to have, in order for entrapment to be an effective defense to a crime, you have to have had no proclivity to commit that crime prior to being induced to it by the police officer, by the law enforcement official.
Yeah.
So, but boy, oh boy, this falls right on that line of entrapment, man. It's real close, I would say. So it would be interesting to see in the real world if something like this happened, if there would be a reasonable entrapment argument to make. If I had thought a little bit more about it, I would have put together a law minute on entrapment because it would have been perfect for this. But it didn't even occur to me until we were just kind of live riffing just now. So that shows you how rehearsed this podcast is. So that's pretty much the end of the Raylan storyline, except he gets back to the house. He's got the house to himself again. Alison's back in his company in the house, accusing him, basically suggesting that maybe it's not such a good idea that they see each other because they're, gasoline and fire. And accuses him a little bit of having a tendency to women who run afoul of the law. And Raylan's response is, I wouldn't call it a tendency. But I mean, Lindsay, the bartender, Winona stole $250,000 from an evidence lockup. Eva.
She actually has a body on her.
Yeah, and she's in jail right now.
Yep.
Yeah, so
for the second body.
Yeah, so not. Yeah, that's right. For the second body, you're absolutely right. Yeah, the body on her, she got off on. So yeah, yeah. So I mean, I guess we could call that a tendency, I suppose. So I have a feeling that if we watch Justified City Primeval coming up soon here next year, there may be a relationship with a woman who has run afoul of the law. I'm just guessing, but based on the book, I'm guessing there's going to be a little bit of a moment there. So, so our final scene. Well, we've got two final scenes. Let's deal with the easy one first. So Carl brings a crate filled with a whore to the bar, and it's Candy, aka Terry. And Boyd wants to know where Johnny is. She doesn't know. She claims not to know where Johnny is. But she does have her bejeweled flip phone on her. And he uses that phone to call cousin Johnny. And so we'll see where that leads in the next episode. I do want to mention before we get to this last conversation between Daryl and Dewey. So there's two things I want to talk about Daryl. Okay. So the first is, let's talk about his accent, because it's all over the place. It's awful, terrible accent. It's almost offensive. It's almost so terrible that it's offensive. Like, really? Like it insults my intelligence that I expect that somebody actually talks like that, right? It's like this weird, like Florida white trash plus Louisiana Cajun plus like Brooklyn thing that he's got going on, and he uses man on every sentence. It's wild. It drives me crazy hearing him talk.
I don't know, like if I'd call it offensive. I maybe because accents don't bother me. Like if they're really terrible, it'd have to be really terrible for me to notice. But I'm not that sophisticated as far as like knowing the differences.
Yeah. It's just that usually the accents on the show are pretty good. And his is just so bad in comparison.
Maybe you just don't like him. Like, because part of it is, I think that he is from Brooklyn. So I think that he just can't help himself talking, like putting that in. into his speech.
I just wish they hadn't even tried the accent. Like, let's just go neutral with it. Just don't lean into the accent thing. Just, just go neutral. You don't need to have the accent. It would have been so much less distracting.
Yeah.
But anyway.